Thank you very much. And this has been really a great, very rich conference so far, and I hope I can live up to that expectation. And it's great that people are hanging in. I know it's been a very full day. I'm supposed to be here as the die-hard true believer in cap and trade, and I may get into some of that later. But I agree with President Obama, who said in his post-election news conference that cap and trade is just a means, not an end. My goal is a truly sustainable economy where people have clean water to drink, clean air to breathe, and a stable climate upon which to build our prosperity. To do that, we need to transform the way we produce and consume energy. We need to phase out dirty coal plants and replace them with cleaner options. We need to move our transportation system off of addiction to oil. And we need to maximize the benefits that we can achieve through energy efficiency. Those are things that we can do, and that's the vision that drives me, not adherence to any particular means. And frankly, I think that is a much more compelling vision than the idea that what I want is to make carbon really, really expensive. I don't think we build a movement that way. With truly great admiration to James Hansen, who I've known and followed for a long time in his science, I do think that if we have to wait to solve global warming until the general public knows the difference between cap and trade and tax and dividend, we're going to fry. We're not going to get it that way. So let's have the debate that we're about to have about policy and strategy and tactics. But let's try to remember that it's the vision that unites us. And you know, I think we're probably all angry and frustrated that we haven't made more progress in the last 2 years. I certainly am, and 2 years, let alone the last 20 years of working on this issue. And we can and should debate what went wrong, whether it was the design of the policy, the design of the campaign, whether it was Obama not doing enough, or the Republicans who just said no, and it's probably all of that. And we should try to figure out what changes we should make in order to win in the future. But let's try to remember also who our true opponents are. Our opponents are not any people in this room whom we may disagree with over strategy or tactics or mechanism to get where we want to go. Our opponents are the Koch brothers and Peabody Coal and Valero Oil, who are pouring pollution into the atmosphere, they're poisoning our lungs, destabilizing our climate, and they're pouring millions of dollars into deceptive political activities, poisoning our politics. So let's try to remember that that's the true opposition. Now, I do want to start with the one most important victory that we had in the last election cycle, because I think it's an important example, and that is the stunning success of the No on Prop 23 campaign. So the background here is AB 32, California's landmark climate law, which passed a few years ago. There's a proposition put on the ballot. So popular vote, Proposition 23, which would have essentially killed it. It was guised as just a delay until the unemployment rate falls to 5%. The unemployment rate in California is 12%. The No on 23 campaign didn't just beat that back, it crushed it by 20 points. And they did that by building a very broad and deep coalition, broader than anything we've done before. They united organizations and constituencies who had serious disagreements about how to implement California's law. And it was a bipartisan group, it was multiracial, included businesses and environmentalists. And I think that's the kind of coalition that we need to build if we're going to make progress at the national level. We need to build it state by state, and we need to build it nationally. Now, what was their approach to the campaign? I think it was successful because they basically had incredible discipline around a three-part approach to winning on this issue. They had a villain, a victim, and an opportunity. And I think you have to have all three to win. The villain, in this case, the opposition made it easy for them. 2 Texas oil companies. Nothing Californians hate worse than a couple of Texas oil companies coming in telling them how to do it, particularly when they were in the middle of the World Series against the Texas Rangers, so that helped. In fact, the informal slogan for the campaign was "Beat Texas twice." The victim was Californians' health. And the opportunity was continued progress in creating clean energy jobs. And this was a mailer that was sent out to thousands or millions of households around California. There was also TV advertising that had exactly the same message. You'll notice that the words price and carbon don't appear anywhere on this page. Global warming probably doesn't appear on there either. We can debate about that. I have my qualms about trying to win this issue without actually educating people that global warming is a problem you need to solve. But in terms of winning this vote, this worked. Those are facts on the ground, and we should pay attention to them. Now, okay, let me go ahead and switch to talking about policy a little bit. I think as we heard this morning, in Gary Yohe's talk about the carbon budget that we have if we're going to avoid catastrophic climate disruption, translates into at least an 80% reduction in emissions by mid-century. This graph, and I'll take a minute to explain what's going on here because there's a lot going on, is essentially a supply curve of emission reductions. Across the horizontal axis is pollution reduced, and the vertical axis is dollars per ton. So the width of the bar is how many tons of pollution you can reduce, and the height of the bar is the cost of that. And you'll see on the left-hand side, you've got things that are negative cost, minus $40 per ton for energy efficiency in buildings. And a big opportunity, 1.7 billion tons of reductions by 2050. And then as you go up across the curve, you get to things in transportation, industrial efficiency, and renewable energy, which in general is a little bit more expensive than fossil fuels right now. And then more expensive options that we probably will need to tap into. It may not be exactly these, but to get all the way to 80% reduction, some additional forms of low carbon energy that are going to be needed. So in order to achieve these kinds of reductions, we need to get at least 3 things right. The first is that we need to overcome non-market barriers to the things that are already cost-effective. Energy efficiency is minus $40 a ton in buildings. Why isn't it happening? Raising the price of carbon will help a little bit on the margin, but if it's not happening now, at minus 40, as we start off and we're gradually phasing in a carbon tax or a price on carbon from whatever mechanism, those barriers still exist. So you got to attack those directly. That's work like building codes, utility reform, so utilities can make money by saving their customers energy rather than just by selling more. And these are the kinds of things that NRDC's energy program has worked on for 30 years, and we've made a lot of progress in the sense that U.S. energy demand today is very substantially less than what people projected it would be 30 years ago. But we've got to face up to the fact that we're never going to get all the way where we need to go with energy efficiency alone, even if we maximize the potential there. What we managed to do, I think, again, let's look at the facts on the ground. In the best cases, we've been able to more or less stabilize demand, so it's not growing. That's huge progress relative to what you would have otherwise. In a few cases, we may be able to drive demand a little bit down, but energy efficiency, as important as it is, it won't get us all the way there. But that's the first thing we do because it actually pays dividends directly for the economy. The second thing that we need to be doing at the same time is stimulating investment in innovation. research and development and the whole innovation infrastructure. Now, some folks who claim to be for dealing with global warming have suggested that that's the only thing we should be doing. That's the argument of Bjorn Lomborg these days. It's the argument of the Breakthrough Institute. The reality is, if you are focused only on an innovation strategy with the idea that you're going to lower the cost of low carbon alternatives to the point that they're cheaper than fossil fuels without raising fossil fuel costs, you know, that's not going to happen. This is not like information technology where you've got some early adopters who are willing to pay a huge premium for things that have new capabilities that you can get before. The reality is, at best, with clean energy, you can do exactly what you could do before, and it probably costs you only a little bit more than dirty energy, obviously not including the external cost. So the third part is in the middle, where you're kind of close to the margin. That's where pricing carbon really has a big effect, and then it also reinforces everything else, and it gets you where you need to go over the long term. So I've never believed that pricing carbon is the only thing we need to do. I think we have to go at this through all three strategies. You know, we tried in the House Energy and Climate Bill to do all three things in one bill. Maybe that wasn't the best strategy in retrospect, clearly not such a good idea. But where are we now? So I think, as a lot of people have said, for the next 2 years, the prospects of actually enacting any positive legislation in Congress are slim to none. Maybe a little bit, little chunks, as the president had said, maybe around energy efficiency or renewables, but certainly not a comprehensive bill. But we can actually start to internalize the cost of burning fossil fuels using the Clean Air Act. Under the Massachusetts versus EPA Supreme Court decision, EPA has that authority and responsibility. They will exercise it unless Congress takes that power away. But make no mistakes, there will be a very serious attempt to take that power away from EPA over the next couple of years. And we need to unite, as we never have before, in defending that in order to make progress over this period. I think we can do that. And that really is a key job. So that's our strategy in the near term. Now, having said all that, and I'm running out of time, you know, I continue to believe that a cap on emissions is the best way to get us where we need to go, because if you think about the budget that Gary Yo showed this morning, if we have a budget of whatever we decide that is, 180 billion tons of CO2 that can be emitted, the most straightforward way to ensure that that's what we emit is to actually mandate that that's the most we could emit. That's the idea behind the cap. Trading was never central to it. That was just designed in order to get it through. And then we can talk about other issues about the specifics of the design. But you know, I think that the goal here is to create a truly sustainable economy that does not destabilize the climate upon which all our prosperity is built. And I hope we can all work together to accomplish that going forward. Thanks.